Today's episode of Off the Timeline is titled What If Earl Campbell Chose Texas A&M and Flipped the Entire State? There are what ifs in college football, and then there are moments that quietly decide who gets to play for national championships. This is one of those moments. Earl Campbell wasn't just a great player, he was the identity of Texas football in the heart of the 1970s. The power, the fear, the inevitability. But what if, in an alternate universe, he ends up choosing Texas A&M instead? And if that happens, Texas doesn't just lose a player, they lose control of Texas football. And once that control slips, it changes who wins the Southwest Conference, who gets into the national title conversation, and who gets remembered. This isn't a small ripple. This is a change in the national balance of power. But first, let's set the table for the decision. To understand this, you have to understand what Texas football meant in the 1970s. The Longhorns weren't just good, they were the standard. If you were the best player in Texas, you went to Texas. That wasn't just tradition, it was expectation. And Earl Campbell, he wasn't just the best player in the state, he was the kind of player programs are built around with power, speed, and durability. The kind of running back that doesn't just gain yards, he defines how a team plays. But Texas A&M was right there, recruiting him, selling something completely different. Not come join a legacy, but come be the legacy. Because at Texas, Campbell becomes part of something great, but at Texas A&M, he could have become the reason they became great. And in the 1970s, controlling Texas recruiting didn't just win you games, it put you in the national conversation. That's why this decision matters. Because this isn't just a recruit, this is leverage over a program, a conference, and eventually the national picture. And that sets the table for the immediate shockwave. The moment Campbell commits to Texas A&M in this alternate universe, everything changes. Not gradually, but immediately. Because Texas doesn't just lose production, they lose identity. That downhill, inevitable style, that was Campbell. Without him, Texas is still good, but now they look human, and that matters. Because in this era, voters don't just reward wins, they reward dominance. And Campbell was dominance. So now instead of being a team the country trusts, Texas becomes a team the country questions. Meanwhile, Texas A&M becomes something entirely different, much more relevant, much more intimidating, the kind of team that suddenly shows up in national conversations. Every defense now has the same question. How do we stop him? Most of them don't, and for the first time in years, Texas is not the center of gravity in their state anymore. And that sets the table for the game. Texas versus Texas A&M, but this time it's different because Earl Campbell isn't wearing burnt orange, he's on the other sideline, and you can feel it before kickoff. This isn't just a rivalry game, this is a battle for control. And more than that, this game decides who stays in the national conversation and who starts to drift out of it. Early on, Texas looks good, disciplined, efficient, and confident. But then Campbell starts doing what he does. 4 yards here, 6 yards there, 8 yards here, over and over again. And by the fourth quarter, something changes. The defense that used to define Texas football is on its heels. This is the drive, the one everyone remembers in this alternate universe. Campbell breaks one. Not untouched, not clean, the kind of run where defenders hang on, but it doesn't matter. When he crosses the goal line, it's not just a touchdown, it's a transfer of power. Texas A&M wins, and for the first time in a generation, Texas doesn't feel inevitable anymore. And that sets the table for the ripple effect. And this is where the timeline really changes. Because once Texas loses control of the state, the effects don't stay in Texas, they move outwards. First, towards the Southwest Conference. Texas had been the anchor, the program voters trusted to represent the league nationally. Without that dominance, the conference becomes uncertain. Arkansas rises into a larger role. Houston becomes more relevant in rankings discussions, and Texas A&M, now they're playing games that matter beyond the region. Then comes the Heisman race. In our world, Earl Campbell wins it at Texas. In this world, he's doing the same thing, same runs, same dominance, but New Jersey voters aren't used to rewarding, and that creates hesitation, debate, and in this era, that hesitation matters because Heisman winners shape legacy, and legacy shapes how programs are viewed nationally. And then finally, the national title picture. Texas, without that overwhelming identity, slips just enough to fall out of the top tier of unquestioned contenders. Not because they collapse, but because they're no longer dominant. And in the 1970s, if you're not dominant, you're replaceable. So that space opens up for other programs, other regions, other champions, and it all traces back to one decision. And that sets the table for the legacy rewrite. In the real world, Tex Earl Campbell is remembered as the embodiment of Texas football, the power, the dominance, the identity. But in this alternate universe, he becomes the player who changed where power lived, the one who made Texas share the spotlight, the one who forced voters to look elsewhere, the one who quietly changed the national conversation. Because this wasn't about stats. This wasn't about one season. This was about control. Who owns Texas football? In our timeline, Texas never really let go, but they almost did. And if Earl Campbell makes a different decision, Texas may never get it back. And sometimes the biggest changes in college football don't come from championships. They come from decisions. And this one didn't just change Texas, it changed who the country paid attention to. Now, if you enjoy this college football alternate history deep dive, hit like, comment, and subscribe, and check out more videos on the end screen. And I'll see you in the next timeline.